Okay, very good evening to everyone. Can you guys hear me? Can I see a raise of hands or a thumbs up? Can you all hear me? Right, perfect. Thank you, Atif, and thank you, Malik, and everyone else. Right, let's get into action. Today's program is going to specifically be something which we are going to learn about MD programs and MBBS programs. So this is an important question where a lot of students need to make a decision when they are selecting a medical school. Medical school එකක් තෝරද්දී MD ද MBBS ද කියන එක ගොඩක් කට්ටිය බලනවා. So I'm going to answer questions on the difference of MD and MBBS. I'm going to look into what is probably going to be the most strongest qualification than the other. I can't say anything is weak here because MD programs are very strong. MBBS programs are very strong. I'm just going to tell you who is above the other one. I'm going to tell you how does this qualification match countries in Sri Lanka and countries outside Sri Lanka. And I'll be using one of our doctors to actually guide me. We will have a video of Dr. Burhan, who is unfortunately not participating physically today, but we've got a pre-recorded session given by Dr. Burhan. Now, I want you to be familiar with two things. Number one is familiar with our website, which you can see. Website has got couple of universities. මෙන්න මේ universities decide වෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම MD ද MBBS ද කියන එක. Number one, can anyone chat and reply me? How do I know which universities are MD and which universities are MBBS? How do I know this? Does anyone have an answer for that question? Some people may always keep confusing it. How do I know who gives an MD, who gives an MBBS? How do I know it? Is there anyone who can answer this in a very easy way? Anyone here? Guys, this is just going to be only 45 minutes to 1 hour. Let's get the best out of this. කාටරි දන්නවද MD රටවල් කියන්නේ මෙන්න මේ වගේ රටවල්, MBBS රටවල් කියන්නේ මෙන්න මේ වගේ රටවල් කියන එක? Anyone knows the difference? Anyone here? Anyone here? Anyone here? Anyone here? Yes, you can chat with me if you know how it is. European countries are MD is a good start, Raj. It's a good start. You are kind of correct. We will be elaborating more on that, right? We will be elaborating more on that, right? Okay. Anyone wants to give any other suggestions? The easiest way is Commonwealth. Duration is another way, Karam. Commonwealth countries are MD the MBBS. Commonwealth countries are MD or MBBS. Commonwealth countries are MD or MBBS. MD or MBBS. MBBS. Thank you. Are MBBS. Non-Commonwealth countries are therefore MD. This is one way to look into it. This is one way to look into it. In the world, there is only one country which is having a fair mix of MD and MBBS totally happening in their country. Anyone knows which country is that? Now, if you take Sri Lanka, we have both, but Sri Lanka is a Commonwealth country. Therefore, Sri Lanka is MBBS. Malaysia, wrong. Malaysia is 100% MBBS. Anyone knows a country where it is almost very strong? MD තියනවා, MBBS තියනවා. MD තියනවා, MBBS තියනවා. USA, no. I'll give you a clue. Russia, no. Russia is MD. I'll give you a clue. This particular country was supporting MBBS. ekyanne metana podda this country is now becoming MD. What is it? Zahara, no. So many options you all are chatting with me. The correct country didn't come. Someone says, is it China? No. To do that, Shivendra is correct. Answer is Australia. Australia. Australia was MBBS, now changing to MD. Now there is kind of like a 70-30 ratio. Mukaddame 70-30 ratio. Like 70% are MBBS, 30% are MD. In future, make a 70 MD, 30 MBBS about a. So that is news for anyone who is going to migrate to Australia. You are going to change and go into a system which is going to an MD system. Understood? May Commonwealth countries can what is this Commonwealth countries? Any country, uh, any country which is hold on. Okay, sorry, got deleted. Commonwealth is equal to any country under the British. Any country under the British. Australia also had a connection with the British, so Australia also has that. Non-Commonwealth kiyanne no British involvement. So countries like European Union, countries like East Europe, countries like Canada or USA, North American countries, and countries like Russia. Majority of the countries, you will see that they have followed this particular system. Are we clear with that particular story of it? Right. Second part is this seminar is going to be a very informative seminar, which will go on for about approximately, it will go on for about 1 hour or 45 minutes. Anyone who is missing this, can you help us to subscribe into this particular channel? Please subscribe here and follow this channel. You will be getting this particular video of what I'm having today, which you can see. I have done a lot of videos with a lot of students. You can check them. Today's one is exclusively done for MD versus MBBS. These kind of videos are not entered here. This is the first video which we are going to do on that. Are we clear? So try to follow us and subscribe with us, and you will get this particular video. Shall we just look into a proper duration of this qualification? And to get the duration of this qualification, I'm going to show you a difference of qualifications here. Can you help me to figure out what this is? Make a screenshot එක ගන්න මේ screenshot එක ඉතාමත්ම වැදගත් වෙනවා ඔයාට. Number one, what I'm trying to show you here is MBBS, but what is this 4.5 years? එහෙමත් තියනවාද qualification? මම අහලා තියෙන MBBS කියන්නේ 5 years නේ. ඔයා අහලා තියෙන MBBS 5 years එක තමයි මෙතන. මේ 5 years එක MBBS එකක්, Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery qualification, which is 5 years. Do you know that there are some countries which give it for 4.5 years? Then there is a 6-year MD, and then there is a 7-year MD, which is 3 years plus 4 years. Qualifications වලට. Anyone? This is the qualification for Western medicine. Western medicine වලට අදාළ qualification එක. Is everyone clear? Western medicine වලට අදාළ qualification එක. Right? මෙන්න මේ Western medicine එක අදාළ qualification එක තමයි මෙන්න මේ වෙලාවේ මේ තියෙන්නේ. Can you help me, tell me an example for what are 4.5 year MBBS programs? Can anyone type on the screen? මෙන්න මේක තමයි 4.5 years MBBS program. Can anyone type in the screen? I will write it here. Anyone? 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 Who does MBBS in 4.5 years? I'll give you two countries. Nepal, their qualifications are 4.5 years MBBS. So what's the advantage when you do a 4.5 year qualification? You finish it super fast. Qualification, what happens? You finish it super fast. What's a bad thing is that you are going to compete with all these people. You are going to compete with the 5-year MBBS people. You are going to compete with the 6-year MBBS people. You are going to compete with the 7-year MBBS MD people. You are going to compete with all of these people when you just have 4.5 years MBBS. Nepal has that qualification, and some Chinese unis, not all. Some Chinese universities are also having 4.5 year MBBS qualification. මේ රටවල් දෙක හැරෙන්න රටවල් දන්නවද කියලා කිව්වොත් මම දැනට නම් දන්නේ නැහැ, දැනට නම් අහලා නැහැ, but these are the most prominent places which has a 4.5 year MBBS. Dear students, dear future doctors, think of it this way. You are a patient in a hospital. You have got sick, you are a patient in a hospital. The hospital has asked your parents to channel a doctor, and you know that there are doctors in 4 stages. Would you channel a doctor who is 4.5 years learned medicine? Yes or no? Would you channel a doctor who has 4.5 years learned medicine? The 4.5 year learned medicine, and there is a 5-year guy who learned medicine. Then there is a 6-year guy who learned medicine. Then there is a 7-year guy who learned medicine. So the general qualification of this comes here. This is the general countries. This is the general countries. When I say general countries, Sri Lanka, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, you know, the normal ways of what medical students study there are going to be 5 years. My dear students, remember, I'm only talking about the academics of clinicals and preclinicals. I have not counted the internships. මේ internships එකතු කරන්න ගියොත් මේ ඔක්කොම වෙන කැලි වලට කැඩෙන්න ඕනේ, මොකද it's very complicated to divide it with internships. I'm not calculating the internships anywhere here to make it fair. Inside the university with preclinicals and clinicals, how long do I study? Okay, then comes the 6-year MD. 6-year MD is considered as a postgraduate qualification where in the 6th-year MD qualification, what we do is we understand that EU countries can රටවල් මොකක්ද? 27 countries are there. People in these 27 countries, they actually have this particular method. Other one is East Europe countries, East EU countries. Other one is the Soviet area, or which is called Russia. Geographically, probably the world's largest country in the world, geographically. Why am I talking about Russia? Lankave foreign graduates lagging ප්‍රබලතම foreign graduates la inna ratak tamai in qualified වෙච්ච රටක් තමයි මේ රුසියාව කියන එක. Some of the best doctors have qualified from since 1960s, 70s, 80s, and it goes on like that. Eastern European countries is the entire countries which is between Europe to sometimes you can say Russia. So countries like, you know, Chechnya, countries like Belarus, countries like Ukraine, countries like Armenia, Latvia, Estonia, Dagestan, Turkmenistan, these countries are all having 6-year MD programs. And the 27 countries inside European Union are having this kind of qualification, which is in 27 different countries: France, Germany, Poland, Denmark, Switzerland, Spain, Italy, these kind of countries. So I can tell you in my memory, maybe about 10-15 countries. Online, if you go and see, you will have about 27 different countries, including countries like Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Greenland, so many other countries which are there. එතකොට මෙන්න මේ 3+4 එන්නේ මොන වගේ රටවල්? Can someone help me to fill this final grid? Who is going to have this? Canada is a very good answer. Thank you very much, Tahrim. All North American countries, North American කියලා කියද්දී there are 3 countries. විශේෂයෙන්ම ඉතින් අපි මෙක්සිකෝ ගැන ඒ හැටියට කතා වෙන්නේ නැහැ. I don't have any, I have never heard students sir I like to go and become a doctor in Mexico කියලා කියනවා. So people become doctors in Canada or USA, which has how many? 52 states roughly. මේ අයගේ system එක මෙහෙමයි. මට මේ North American, sir, does Cuba come under this? Cuba, I need to check and verify. Cuba most probably will have an MD program, right? Okay, coming into this, I kind of see this particular program is very serious when it comes into the North American doctors. Now, have you had anywhere a question? Have you had a question anywhere? Why are doctors in America and Canada paid a lot? Mukadame, can you see how much they have to study? They have to do a bachelor's separately. They take sometimes a gap year to work, and then they do a 4-year MD. Practically, you might think this is going to take 7 years. No, correct. But it will also have a gap year. This gap can be 6 months to 1 year. I may 3rd year you need to collect your transcripts. May 3rd year you will have to collect your graduation certificates. You need a graduation ceremony. ඒකට ඔක්කොම 1 year විතර යනවනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් 6 months නේ. So you can't finish this in 7 years. It can go to about 7 to actually 8 years. Even if I take 7.5 years, it comes in the 8th year. No, even if I take 7.5 years. So example, this particular person is studying medicine alone without internships for 8 years. Their sacrifice is very, 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 very high. All of the Canadian American doctors have got 2 degrees. Either they are a bachelor's in biomedical science, who is a doctor. They have a bachelor's in biomedical engineering, who is a doctor. They have a bachelor's in chiropractic studies, who is a doctor. They have a bachelor's in psychology, who is a doctor. They have a bachelor's in nursing, who is a doctor. There is a bachelor's in a general science area, who is a doctor, and so many things. Okay. This is basically something very important to understand how this actually goes and breaks into actually components, right? Okay, there is a small question. So I've seen medical degrees called BMBH in UK. Could you please give me a small introduction regarding to this? Yes, these kind of degrees are like a bit of out of Western medicine, taking a component of Western medicine. Not only in UK, I have seen this in China, I have seen this in Russia. So whenever students select degrees in Russia or China, I always tell them, can you please go and see whether this is according to SLMC's thing? Because bachelors in medicine and bachelors in chemistry or bachelors in a different title can kind of confuse your local medical council if you are coming to Sri Lanka. Lanka poddak careful. I agree with you. Some UK universities, when you go and search, you can see the title. Some UK universities make it title එක වෙනස් විදිහකට දාලා තියෙනවා. Some Chinese universities have this problem. Some Russian universities outside of St. Petersburg has this problem. දැන් ප්‍රධාන universities තියෙන්නේ රෂ්‍යාවල අපි හිතමු Moscow and St. Petersburg කියලා. So you are selecting a university which we also don't know, we have not heard. You have got a website, and somewhere outside these areas you need to be very careful of the qualification title. That can actually be a bit of a problem, right? Coming into this, again I'm backing up and saying how superior is the American qualification here. American qualification, if you ask me to rank, I will definitely rank this number 1. This is very strong. Getting into North America and Canadian countries are very expensive. Do you know how much is the university fee alone here? Sometimes university fee is approximately 100 lakhs. How many years are you going to study here? Let's say 7 years. Multiply by 7 years. Kelimma kiya the 700 lakhs. 700 lakhs. Okay. So if you are a relative of Wanindu Hasaranga, the cricketer, maybe he will help you to cover some of this cost. It is nothing then, right? Out of jokes. So 700 lakhs is something which these countries have. So people who can't spend so much, you know, what do? They look at countries like East Europe to go to Belarus, where they can have a similar qualification like this and then migrate to these particular countries. Now, when you're coming for the MBBS and MD platforms, MBBS is a line which is actually divided from here. So I'll divide this line here like this. I'll make the line even more thicker by putting two lines to divide like this. So can you see that this line is a bit different? If you're selecting an MBBS, like I have MBBS universities, I strongly tell students to go to a 5-year program like what we have in Malaysia. Mukadde Malaysian universities, you should know that, you know, in our website, there are interesting universities which we have been actually talking about. In our universities, if you go like this, you can see our universities inside this. These, all of them have 5-year MBBS programs where I'm touching now, all of these people. In my list, who has 4.5 years is these people. Why have I got that? Because some students come and ask me for short qualifications. But I have my reservations in them. When they study for a short qualification, mama mage opinion එක ඒ අයට share කරනවා. මගේ opinion එක ඇවිල්ලා ඔයා මේ වගේ 4.5 years qualification එකක් ගත්තොත් in the long run what is going to happen කියන එක ඔයාට මෙන්න මේ slide එකේ ඔයාට දැන් තේරෙනවා ඇති. What is going to happen in this longer run when it comes into understanding how does this work. So I always try to inform students, when you're studying in a qualification, try to study in a qualification which you will have a good job. You will be placed really well, right? You will be placed really well. You will be having the opportunity of, you will be having the opportunity of getting a good salary, a good demand. Customers or patients should have a recognition to what you do. When you're studying 4.5 years, what if someone says, ඔයා නිකන් මේක ටක් ගාලා ඉවර කරලා ආවා වගේනේ. හරියට නිකන් පයිලට් කෝස් එක අවුරුදු 5යි ඔයා ප්ලේන් එකක් එලවන්න යනවා අවුරුදු 4.5කින්. ඒ හින්දා ඔයා සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ක්වොලිෆයිඩ් නැහැද කියලා ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඔයාගෙන් අහන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. ඔයා ඒ කට්ටියට උත්තර දෙන්න ඕනේ ඉතින් ඔයාගේ ස්කිල්ස් වලින්. How can you obtain a skill when graduates are out there in the market who have 6 years qualifications and some are trying to compete with 5-year qualifications and Sri Lankan qualifications are 5 years? You will be struggling to prove yourself for 4.5 years. ඔයාටම convince කරන්න බෑ. ඔයාට prove කරන්න බෑ මේ 4.5 year MBBS එක ඔයාට සෙතක් ගෙනල්ලා දෙනවා කියන එක argue කරන්න ඔයාටම අමාරුයි. But there is a competition between my 5-year and 6-year people. In this 5-year and 6-year people, lot of people ask me, දෙන්නගෙම knowledge එකෙන් කවුද ඉහළ කියලා. මම කියන්නේ දෙන්නගෙම knowledge එක සමානයි. මට කියන්න බෑ මෙයාගේ knowledge එක මෙයාට වඩා ඉහළයි කියලා. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද මේ ඉහළ මෙන්න මේ 1 year experience එකෙන් යාගේ exposure එක තමයි වැඩි. This person's exposure is great. I don't have any doubt about it. If an MBBS graduate can meet 100 patients for surgery, this person might meet about 300 patients for surgery. So you don't have to be confused in that. The reason is because this person has got 1 year extra training in his university, and therefore he has a 200 plus patient capacity. And again, I'm telling මේකට්ටියකින් මෙයා ටිකක් superior because මෙයාට degrees දෙකයි, graduations දෙකයි, certificates දෙකයි, transcripts දෙකයි, knowledge දෙකයි, and things like that. Can you do a brief introduction for psychology programs to do medicine? So psychology programs, psychologists can do medicine like this, even in countries like Canada. Come and equip yourself with a 3-year degree. Now, since the question is about psychology, I'm answering only on psychology. If your question is in biomedical science, it's the same. If your medicine is something else, it's the same. Any sciences, you shall be doing a bachelor's in biomedical sciences or psychology 3 years. You need to score well in this area where I'm showing an arrow. That scoring has to be example 3.6 GP. Your graduate average has to be 3.6. 3.6 එක තීරණය වෙන්නේ out of 4.0. 3.6 out of 40 කියන්නේ කවුද කියලා ඇහුවනම් ඔයා ලකුණු 100ක විභාගයකින් ලකුණු 85ක් විතර ගන්න ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක්ගේ තත්ත්වයක ඉන්න ඕනේ. Are you clear? මොකද මට මේ 4.0 තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ 3.6 කියලා තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා if you ask me I will tell you out of 100 you have to score about 85 marks. ඒක තමයි 4.0 එකකින් 3.6 GP කියලා කියන්නේ. එතකොට ප්‍රශ්නයක් එනවා එහෙනම් සර් මම සයිකොලොජි කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා මට 3.6 නැහැ. මට තියෙන්නේ නිකන් 3. මම ඉන්ටෙලිජන්ට් ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයි වීක් ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයි මම ඇවරේජ් ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක් මට තියෙන්නේ 3. 3 වලින් මට මෙඩිසින් යන්න බැරිද මේ MD එකට යන්න බෑ. ඒගොල්ලන් අවම වශයෙන් 3.6 විතර ඉල්ලනවා. ඒ 3.6 තියෙන ළමයින්ට entrance exam එකක් මේ හරියේ තියෙනවා. මම මේ arrow එක අල්ල මෙන්න මේ හරියේ තියෙනවා. entrance exam එක අරගෙන that student can do 4 years MD in countries in North America like Canada or anywhere in United States. Anywhere, 52 states, Michigan, New York, anywhere you can go, right? Okay. There is another, so sir, what is the best country to study medicine? Who holds a 3-year bachelor's degree? How many years should be spent for medicine? My opinion, if you look at the best countries are very expensive. Yeah, welcome, Netme. Best countries kila ahන්න එපා. Best countries awama mara gana. Best countries කියලා කියන්නේ Canada, USA ඔය වගේ රටවල්නේ best countries කියන්නේ හරිම ගණන්. Your parents are going to spend, if it's a medical related degree, 100 lakhs a year. If it's a non-medical related degree, they are going to spend about 75, 60, 55 lakhs a year. මේවා හරි ගණන්. So you will do that and you can continue your MD as it is. There is another question I have got. I'm just searching for the question. Hold on. Okay, there is an interesting question. Is countries like Belarus safe for girls? I'll tell you a statistic which I have been working out for the last 11 years, right? Mama අවුරුදු 11ක් මේ වැඩ කරනවා. Belarus has been one of the most famous countries. Actually, majority of women have actually selected. And අවුරුදු 11ක් තිස්සේ මම ඔයගලන්ට trend එකක් ගැන කිව්වා නම්, right? Trend එකක් ගැන කිව්වා නම් the number of girls going to countries like Belarus have increased. Boys have reduced. මම ඒකට හේතුව කියන්නම් boys අතර ඇත්තටම මේ medicine නැත්නම් professional qualifications කරන්න ඕන intention එක ඇත්තටම ගොඩක් අඩු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ දැන්. Their interest in studies have honestly come down. But the girls are studying and many of them have gone to Belarus. Belarus, I would say, is very safe. And I can't say very safe unless I compare it. So I'm going to compare with two countries. I'll compare with a country like Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, I'll compare it with an area like, let's say, Colombo, where I live in. Or an area which I have gone in India, New Delhi. Another area like in Madras. Ask the question, can a girl, a very young girl, a school-going girl, go in the road in Colombo after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, alone in the road? Can they go in Colombo? Let's talk about Colombo as the main city. I would say they can't go. Do you think a girl at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock can go in the road in Madras or Delhi or Madras or Chennai? I think they can't go. Do you think they can go in the road in India, in New Delhi? I think they should not go. They should be accompanying with their parents or some elderly person. In Belarus, you can go in the road 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Up to now, it has been one of the safest places where people can stay. If you are safe in Sri Lanka, you are 10-15 times more safer in a country like Belarus, is my own opinion, right? Now, enough of talking about this. Shall we brainstorm and check what Dr. Burhan, a medical doctor, actually shared knowledge on this particular thing, right? To understand this, I'm going to pause the video whenever I want, so that you will have a very good idea of understanding how this happens, right? One more question, sir. Some travel as transfer students from Malaysia to Canada, right? So which year will be entering the bachelor's program or the MD? Yeah, they actually start sometimes from the beginning. It depends on how the Canadian universities accept it. So sometimes you will, if you do a transfer program, you have to transfer to a similar type of a program. If not, you will actually spend a lot of time. I don't recommend transferring from Malaysia to Canada. I recommend transferring from Malaysia to England or Australia. Why? MBBS, MBBS. MBBS, MBBS, it makes sense. If you transfer from Malaysia to Canada, Malaysia to UK or Malaysia to Australia, in 5.5 years, your academic studies are done. If you go from Malaysia to Canada, it depends on the universities. I don't think you can finish it in 5.5 years. That's my shortest, quickest answer which I can give. Okay, check this out. You're welcome, Tahrim.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Burhanuddin Hamza. So basically, I think what we are.
Okay, so guys, Dr. Burhanuddin Hamza was supposed to be live with us. Unfortunately, he had to take one of his family members to a particular special consultation today, and uh, he apologizes that he couldn't be with us. But I wanted to talk with him something very important on this aspect, and I just quickly recorded a video. This video, I'm going to stop and break it into chunks, and you type and keep your questions, that in the last 10-15 minutes we'll answer it. Guys, my seminar will be over very soon, so please keep attention to this very carefully. Dr. Burhan is a former Lyceum student. I know that there are a lot of Lyceum students who are here, who follow him on our network and things like that. So Dr. Burhan is a person who is practicing at the moment at the Kalubowila Hospital. He's got vast experience in Sri Lanka working in government sectors. He's a consultant of our college. He's also looking at studying and looking at other programs as well. Let us see what is his view on studying MD and MBBS.
Going to be talking about in general would be between an MD and an MBBS. So let's look at what they stand for. So I'm sure a lot of people are curious as to what they actually are and what the difference is. So when you look at an MD, it is Doctor of Medicine, and when you look at MBBS, it is Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, right? So very important thing, before I go into the depth of talking about the fundamental differences, you need to understand that there are two MDs. There is an undergraduate level MD and there is a postgraduate level MD.
There is an undergraduate level MD and there is a postgraduate level MD. So if I go and search this particular doctor, who knows about a doctor called Dr. Anil Jasingha? Anyone knows this name called Dr. Anil Jasingha? Anyone knows who is Dr. Anil Jasingha? Dr. Anil Jasingha. Yes, you guys should know about him. He is the person who was kind of controlling Corona when the first time we did really well. Afterwards, I don't know why he was changed to agriculture. He's a doctor, he was put to agriculture. I really don't know why. This is Dr. Anil Jasingha, who studied in the Russian, in the era of the Russian Soviet education system. ඔයාට පේනවද මෙයාගේ මේ MD කියලා තියෙනවා. මෙයාගේ first degree එක MD. He was the former director of General of Health Services. You're correct. He comes on TV very often, right? This MD is his first MD. මේ MD එක තමයි අපේ ළමයින් යුරෝප් වල ඊස්ට් යුරෝප් වල ඉගෙන ගන්න first degree එක. මෙයා මේ first degree එක කරන ගමන් මෙයා post graduate එකකුත් කරලා නිකන් MSc කියලා. Dr. Burhan is telling, don't confuse the postgraduate MD with this MD. So a MD graduate in North America in European Union, in East Europe, or in Russia will have MD and MD together. This MD is his first degree, this MD is his second degree or his specializing degree. How if Dr. Anil Jasinghe studied in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India, Indonesia, somewhere like this? His qualification will be MBBS and MD. Are you clear now? It's going to be MBBS and MD, right? Now his qualification is MD and MD, two MDs. Don't confuse the first MD with the second MD. First MD is an undergraduate qualification, or it's a senior undergraduate qualification, or a master's level undergraduate qualification. This is a specializing qualification. That is what Dr. Burhan is actually explaining there, and he will re-explain this properly. Check this out again.
Right, so just because you get an undergraduate level MD from some university, right, that doesn't mean that is equivalent to one of the MDs that a consultant in Sri Lanka has, because a consultant in Sri Lanka will have his undergraduate, it can be an MBBS and an MD, and later he will move into the postgraduate level examinations. For example, if he's actually doing it in surgery, or it could be, you know, even as working towards going into dermatology, that would be a postgraduate level MD, right? So on an undergraduate level, there are a few key differences, right? So if I start by the basic difference which everyone knows, is the amount of exposure that you get in a clinical setting, right? So people will say, yes, obviously the amount of years in an MD program is more than the number of years in an MBBS program. Absolutely true. If you look at an MBBS program, it would be between 4.5 to 5 years, whereas an MD program would contain 6 years. So I mean, the number of years do make a big difference, because it increases the number of clinical exposure. But you need to also understand that apart from the foundation level, there's also a lot of integrated, extensive clinical exposure that you would get in an MD curriculum. Now, if I give an example, if you take the university in Belarus, which I have got my MD from, Vitebsk Medical University, we had a lot of classes in a lot of different hospitals, which gave us more of an exposure. What I mean by that is we had a separate hospital for infectious diseases. So whenever we had any cases where we wanted to actually, you know, see the management plan, the diagnosis, how they diagnose, how they do the investigation panels, what are the key differences with regard to, you know, basic investigations, we had to go into those hospitals, and we had extended period of, you know, clinical rotations in that particular hospital. So
the MD has an extra time to spend with students in this. You get to go into the grassroots level of identifying things. In that level, sometimes the MBBS platform will not help you. That is what is trying to say.
That gave us a better exposure. That's just the superficial difference, right, between an MD and MBBS. And I think what I would want to, you know, stop and explain would be the key difference, which is very, very important. Right? The key difference between an MD and MBBS is, how I would like to put it, is you ask your son, if I'm talking to a parent, right, what they want to become. Now whenever you ask, I mean, during my time, when people would ask someone, what is your ambition in life, they would say, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a pilot. Those were the sort of, you know, fields that people were interested in. But currently, right, if you ask children what they want to become, they will not say, I want to be a doctor or an engineer. They'll say, I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, I want to be a neurologist, I want to become an oncologist, I want to become a hematologist, I want to become a civil engineer, I want to become.
Now, did you see that while that has been doing it, I have a question, sir. I have seen orthopedic degrees. Could you briefly give me an introduction for orthopedic? Orthopedic surgeons or orthopediatricians will get into, guys, a specialization after you do your first degree. Exactly my point. Exactly my point. So when I ask students, what field of medicine do you like to do? the MD person has gone into studying many areas practically, where he will get exposed to his clinical period, where it's very easy for him to decide and go through his specializations than an MBBS. An MBBS will take time to identify that. That is what Dr. Burhan is saying.
An aeronautical engineer, I want to become a mechanical engineer. So you understand that the children in this generation have already thought about specialization. And if children have thought to that extent, right, if I have to compare in that basis, an MD provides a platform for those children to pursue different fields of specializations that are available, so that they will know which field to pursue after they've completed their undergraduate level. Stop.
Okay, just hold on there. Again, restating what Dr. Burhan says. Dr. Burhan says, if you have a 5-year MBBS and a 6-year MD, this person inside this area will visit most of the wards, which will give him the idea what to get into. This person here needs time to think. He will probably wait until his internships are done and see what happens. Here, he has already got a very good exposure on that. That is what Dr. Burhan says. This is the lacking area of this MBBS, which is basically there. Okay.
Right. So I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding that an MD that you get from the North American part of the world, or you get from Europe, is not recognized in Sri Lanka. Let me stop you there and say it is recognized, right? It is absolutely recognized. And there could be a follow-up question asking me, okay, it might be recognized, but students who get an MD find it difficult to come and adapt into the MBBS curriculum which students get in Sri Lanka.
Okay. Is this recognized or not? How do you actually resolve that question? Go on here, type SLMC or Sri Lanka Medical Council. Right? Can you see? Go to Sri Lanka Medical Council. Go and click this Sri Lanka Medical Council. This is the government establishment which tells what are we going to accept and what are we not going to accept. Yanda institutions sector. Institutions wala go and click under this the foreign institutions what you can find. Okay, hold on. Okay, foreign medical schools. May foreign medical schools වලට ගිහිල්ලා click කරලා බලන්න drop down menu එකක් එනවා මෙතන. උදාහරණයකට Belarus කියලා click කරන්න. Belarus වලට click කරොත්, if the government is saying yes, we are recognizing the MD programs, then මට කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. MD. So if someone asks me the question, can you tell me whether Vitebsk State Medical University is valid in Sri Lanka? See, the government has said valid. Whatever anyone says other than that is not going to take count, because the government has said, yes, we are recognizing the MD program here. And we have 300 of doctors who are basically here. Not only that, I show them what is Anil Jasinghe, Dr. Anil Jasinghe becoming the Director General in Sri Lanka. Does anyone know who is the Director General before Dr. Anil Jasinghe? Dr. Anil Jasinghe කලින් හිටපු Director General ගේ නම මොකක්ද? He is a doctor called Dr. Hector Veerasinghe. Where do you think Dr. Hector Veerasinghe studied? Russia. What do you think his qualification is? MD. Where do you think Dr. Hector Veerasinghe's son studied? Again, Russia. What do you think his qualification is? MD. Right? We have so many doctors who have actually got into this. And if your talent is good, you will give a fight with the MBBS graduates and come up. Though Sri Lanka is a Commonwealth country having MBBS, we are recognizing these qualifications. Don't worry. Now the question is, how do you reduce the gap? Now they won't teach about malaria in European countries. So you need to reduce the gap. To reduce the gap only, this particular respected institution, the Sri Lankan Medical Council, Lanka Vaidya Sabha, Sri Lanka Vaidya Sabha, ඔගලන්ට අවශ්‍ය ඔය පන්ති ටිකක් කරලා දෙනවා. ඔන්න ඒ කෑල්ල තමයි ඔතන ඩොක්ටර් බුර්හාන් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී කියන්නේ.
Well, I mean, it all depends on how much of foundation that you have got in your medical school and how you have applied that foundation in your clinical setting and how well versed you are with dealing with patients. Now, I look at it in this way, right? When I was in Belarus, I had a very good foundation from my university. I applied that foundation with my clinical rotations and my clinical exposure, and because of that I had a reasonable amount of clinical experience with regard to patients, which is why it was easy for me to come back to Sri Lanka and grasp the concepts, right? Grasp the concepts of how to treat patients. But yes, you might be right. The places where you get an MD or you're offered an MD do not have some of these tropical diseases that are readily present in Sri Lanka. For example, you look at dengue fever, which was never a problem in my country, I mean in the country that I graduated from, right? So they wouldn't have any clue as to how extensive the management plan is. Right? If you look at the international literature about dengue fever management, all it says is fluid management. But only the Sri Lankan doctors would know there is so much of this fluid management. Right? When we should be giving fluids, when we should be giving crystalloids over colloids, when should we be thinking about putting the patient on something called a critical monitoring chart, when do you catheterize the patient, when would be the possibilities of you giving blood, when is the possibilities of you transfusing platelets, right? So there's a lot of extensive sort of a manual that we have in Sri Lanka that we follow. So yes, the understanding of that manual requires some sort of clinical exposure plus foundation. If you do not have that, obviously it would be very difficult for you to understand. So for me, I grasped it quickly because I had that good foundation level that I applied onto this, and it was easy for me. So don't ever be of that kind of understanding that it becomes very difficult, right, for a person who has got an MD, for him or her to come to a country where they are only giving an MBBS, whether it is difficult for them to actually treat patients. It all depends on the spectrum of diseases, right? So that is what it all ends up to. Another very important thing with regard to an MD, in Sri Lanka it is considered at the equal level, but if you look at
in Sri Lanka, now all this while we talk, so how is it recognized internationally also? We have to
at countries like USA, UK and the European Union, right? If you're planning to migrate to those countries actually prefer students who have got an MD or an MBBS because of the extensive knowledge that they have as to the curriculum is extensive. That is one. A second thing is there are some prerequisites that a student in an MD will have. For example, research, right? For example, a lot of interactive studies, awareness programs that are embedded into the medical curriculum that show these medical councils that this student does not only have the knowledge and the inept of treating patients, but he has an understanding of how he or she can apply that knowledge and how he or she can make the hospital that the doctor is going to go to a better hospital. So it shows how much of not just the knowledge but experience that they've got in not just treating patients in a clinical setting but in an administrative level. That knowledge is also available, so which makes them more capable of taking up that role.
So I think he touched on the administrative part, and strangely, if you see doctors at Lady Ridgeway or any other government institutions, I think MD graduates who qualified in the Eastern European Russian centers are doing really well. I think that's one of the reasons.
So let's now look into the most important difference between an MD and an MBBS, right? So I think I have gone on to explaining about the recognition aspect, about how well known each of them are in different aspects of the world. But this is, I think, the most crucial point that I would actually want to highlight on.
So guys, pay attention. Another 5 minutes. Last point on this.
So firstly, if you look at Sri Lanka, right, these are just examples that are just coming up into my head and I'm just telling you all. If you look at Sri Lanka, if you develop an allergy, let's just say that you had some sort of pineapple, and now you were finding it difficult to actually breathe, or you're itching, you've got some rashes, or your face has swollen up, right? So that clearly means that maybe you're allergic to pineapple, right? Now who do you go to in Sri Lanka? You would go to a general physician, right? Because a general physician would know how to manage it. I mean, you go to any doctor, he would. But if you look at Belarus, right, there where we learn if a patient is having allergies, they don't go to a general physician, but they go to someone called a consultant allergologist, right? So in Sri Lanka, we still don't have that kind of field developing. It is coming up, but we have some pediatric allergologists, but it's not to a major extent like the way it is in the countries that follow the MD program. Right? So I remember we were going for classes, we had rotations on allergology where we were going for classes learning about the whole field, and also we were treating patients who were allergic to peanuts, who were allergic to chocolates, who were allergic to coffee, and how different trials were carried out on them so that they could actually be allergy free and have the possibility of eating chocolate for the first time in their life. Right? So that's something that we covered in the MD program.
The detailedness of what he said now is not shared in MBBS programs, is what indirectly he's saying.
Another important aspect, if you look at the undergraduate level and MD versus an undergraduate MBBS, the example that I give is surgery, right? And when you look at surgery, right, the subject surgery is such a subject where people who are actually in the undergraduate program, they think that as soon as you're done with an MBBS, you are able to operate on a patient. That is absolutely wrong, right? What is important is that a person who has finished an undergraduate level MBBS has a knowledge in the surgical diseases, but does not know on the know-hows of how a surgery is being done, right? So let's just take a simple example, right? We take an example of appendicitis, right? So that's an inflammation of the appendix, right? So if someone has that problem, the mainstay management would be, if it is an uncomplicated one, right, it is to actually remove the appendix. Let's just say that in your final exam, in the surgery exam, your case is an appendicitis. So the consultants will be like, okay, right, you've diagnosed this. So you will say, sir, first of all, it is a clinical diagnosis, but I will confirm by doing an ultrasound scan, and if to see if there is any other possibilities. It can be a UTI, if it's a female, it can be an ectopic pregnancy, blah 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 blah. And they might ask, what is the management? You will tell them that I'll keep the patient fasting, I'll do some blood investigations to confirm, I will actually prepare so that if by any chance we are planning to do an appendicectomy, inform the theatre, blah, you will inform all of that, and mainstay management will be to remove the appendix. That is when your viva will finish in an undergraduate MBBS level. Whereas in an undergraduate MD level exam, the consultants will be like, okay, right, you want to do an appendicectomy? Okay, you have brought the patient to theatre. Where will you make the incision? What type of incisions are there? What do you know about the gridiron incision? What do you know about the lance incision? What do you know about the Pirogov incision? So different incisions, they will ask you what are the differences, right? Not just, it doesn't end there. They'll say, okay, what type of scalpel are you going to use? Are you going to use a 11 size blade? Are you going to use a 22 mm? 15? What blade are you going to use? Right? Afterwards, are you going to use the Bowie, or are you going to use a diatomy? Right? How are you going to separate the subcutaneous tissue? Are there any important vessels you're going to look out for? How are you going to actually access the fascia? Are you going to cut the fascia using the scissor, or are you going to use the scalpel and just cut it superficially and then go through the fascia? In what direction will you cut the fascia? How are you going to separate the muscles? Are you going to cut the muscles, or are you going to separate the muscle? How will you access the peritoneal cavity? How will you lift the peritoneal cavity? How will you, after entering into the peritoneal cavity, if you can't find the appendix, how will you find the appendix? What are the other places the appendix can can go in, like for example retrocecal pelvic appendixes. So you understand these are a few of the questions that we will be asked in our undergraduate MD level. So we will have sufficient knowledge about how the surgery is being done. Whereas in an undergraduate MBBS level, these things are not highlighted on, which is very, very important for a person like me who's interested in specializing in surgery. It gave me the grasp, it gave me the know-hows that, okay, this is how it's done, and that kind of helped me to know that this is where I want to specialize in. Thank you.
Okay. Did you see, guys, how detailed does an MD go into? Now I'm going to answer your questions. Please post in your questions. I will be reading the questions soon. Before that, if you are going into a Belarusian university, this particular type of things, whatever you have here, if you are going into a Belarusian university, you can select universities like VSMU, all inclusive, which will be 16 lakhs a year into 6 years. You can go into GRSMU, which is going to be 14.5 lakhs a year into 6 years. Finally, you will select, if you are concerned about your budget, you have another university, GSMU, which will be 12.5 lakhs a year into 6 years. All MD. The website has all the links to all of these. The website has got all the links to all of these. Kind of questions are that, why is the cost different in each of these universities? It is depending on the area. A bachelor's in management in Jaffna University is different to Peradeniya University, is different to the University of Colombo, different to the University of Japura. Even two universities in Colombo area, which is Javardhanapura and University of Colombo, the cost is different. The cost is different. So the costs are different here. Talk to your parents, talk to your counselors, call us, take an appointment. From here, I will take you on a separate journey, the detailed of what VSMU is, what GRSMU is, what GSMU is. How does the 16 lakh constitute to? Tell me the breakdown. We will separately take that on another individual basis, right? Please post in all your questions, whatever which is needed here, right? I'm going to look into some of the questions now. Please post in your questions, type the questions in this box. Okay, question is going to come from this order. Sir, wouldn't SLMC recognize any other medical degree or university that has not been mentioned under the list? No, SLMC only recognizes anything and puts it there. Anything other than that is not recognized. Okay, to answer your question, let's say example, University of Oxford, the #2 university in the world. Example, University of Cambridge, the #3 university in the world. Example, University of Harvard, the #1 university in the world. Example, the number one Russian university, which is the IP Pavlov University, not recognized. Example, the Yale University, #8 university recognized in the world in United States, not recognized. SLMC has not recognized that. Sir, do Middle East countries recognize MD from Eastern European countries? Definitely, especially if your MD is from a government university. Especially if your MD is from a government university, yes, they recognize. If not, you need to apply for a recognition. Sir, can you do postgraduate MD in a country like America after doing a bachelor's degree in a different country? Without a problem, you can do. Without a problem, you can do. So if someone decides to study medicine in Russia and continue the career in Russia for several years without coming back to Sri Lanka, if he completed any postgraduate studies or consultant training in Russia, when he moved back to Sri Lanka, would SLMC recognize it? Yes, SLMC recognizes it because according to your question, he is coming to Sri Lanka as a consultant. Consultant kenek hatiyata ena hinda, it is recognized, yes. Sir, if we are doing a specializing MD, for an example, neurosurgery, can we work while we do it in a hospital, or we will remain as in-house surgeon doctors only? No, 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 Tehrim. You will be working and earning money. So you will be working while you are doing this. Sir, my father is an Ayurvedic doctor. I want to know if I can proceed with orthopedic side. Please give me. If you are doing orthopedic side in the Western medicine platform, apart from Ayurvedic, you have to follow MBBS or MD as well. Okay, so for your individual counseling, if anyone has any questions on Malaysian universities, please talk to your counselor. We need to go through a one-to-one session even in Malaysian universities. I have given you the costs, which you can take a screenshot on this. For Belarus, 12.5 is one university, 14.5 is one university is 16. Malaysia university bottom starts at 35 lakhs a year. Starting cost is 35 lakhs a year, 35 onwards, 55, 60 venakang apigav universities tiena. What are the cheapest countries to study medicine? I would say the most affordable country to study medicine, what we have in our list is Belarus. When you say cheap, there is a small problem. Don't go for the very cheapest countries either. China wala or Turkey wala or Eastern Europe wala, there are universities which sometimes are like 5 lakhs a year. When you are paying 5 lakhs for a year, you know that you have missed something. When you are paying 5 lakhs for a year, they don't have departments, they don't have proper hospitals. Don't go for the universities which are too cheap also, very dangerous. That is why Belarus is very famous. It's an affordable qualification which is at the highest international standard. Some of the components in the Belarusian universities are not even available in Malaysia. In Malaysia, a government, in Malaysia, your university hospital might have 1,000 beds. In Belarus, we have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 beds hospital. So don't reduce the cost too much. The best I can say you is the Gomel State Medical University, which is starting at 12.5 lakhs. Okay. Can we do MBBS from a BSc Biomedical Science degree? Yes, you can do, depending on whether the MBBS is going to be taken from the Biomedical Science degree in the GPA level. So the GPA standard has to be taken. Do we have to learn Russian, Latin, or whatever in Russian countries? Yes, yes. Even Michelle, if you go to Malaysia, you have to learn Malay. Even if you go to India, you need to study the native language of the area, like Punjab in Punjabi in the Punjab area, or Tamil in the Tamil Nadu area, and Hindi in the North Indian area, etc. Once I have done MD in Belarus, then what are the countries which I can work in? You have 190 countries to select Manal. ඔයාට රටවල් 190ක් තියෙනවා select කරන්න. Other way around, you have to ask me which countries don't recognize Belarus. I can search and tell you like Antarctica, Arctica, maybe like that. I can search and give to you because 190 countries in the world recognize the qualifications here. Sir, what about Belarusian State Medical University mentioned? Are you sending students there? We don't send students there for a couple of reasons. The cost is very, very high there. The cost of living and the university cost comes to about 25 lakhs a year. So 25 lakhs a year is a big problem for some of our parents. Number two, the university is in the capital, which has a lot of distractions, tourist sites for students. So I feel students will get distracted from their studies. Number three, their English knowledge or English exposure is very new. They are more strong in the Russian medium program. Because of these three reasons, I don't recommend the Belarusian State Medical University at the moment. I might recommend it in the next 10 years probably. So what are the universities that we can do psychology in Sri Lanka? You can select any government or private university in Sri Lanka. The International Medical Campus here at IMC, where I am conducting my workshops from, we have a fully fledged psychology degree in Sri Lanka, and I am a faculty. I am a lecturer as well. I can tell you, we can provide you with a 3-year degree, which is internationally valid, even valid for migration. Sir, are foreign universities which are under evaluation for now approved by SLMC? Most of them have got approved. Check the website. What are the cheapest country? I have explained you. Sir, is pre-medicine approved by SLMC? No, no, no. Pre-medicine qualifications are not approved by SLMC. Sir, can you mention about how to apply for those universities and the requirements? So you need to have A-level, CCS or CCD. ඔයාට CCS එහෙම නැත්නම් CCD තියෙන්න ඕනේ. CCS, CCD mostly have to be in chemistry, biology and physics. Then you will have to sit for an entrance exam. A entrance exam, we will give you some classes, right? If I apply for universities and I have good results, what are the possibilities I can get a seat? You can definitely get a seat if you apply very early. You need to apply like 6, 7, 8 months in advance. I am at the moment open for some seats in February for Gomel. So if you have results and if you are in a hurry to go for a university, mata results තියෙනවා, mata university එකට අදිස්සියේ යන්න ඕනේ, මේ මාසේ යන්න ඕනේ, ඊළඟ මාසේ යන්න ඕනේ. Emanang, you can get into the university very fast. If you want to go in September, you need to apply now itself to go in September. Can you explain about the scholarship pathways? The scholarship pathways happens if you have very good grades. Number one, you have interpersonal skills, you have extracurricular activities, you have done sports, you have any patents with you, you have got an awesome resume, you have got recommendations by famous scientists and doctors, you have worked in a hospital, you have some special marks in certain subjects. මම කියන කාරණා 9කට ඔයාට යම්කිසි මේකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඔයාට scholarship එකකට apply කරන්න පුළුවන්. Now what I'm trying to say is you can apply for a scholarship only. A scholarship එක දෙනවද නැද්ද කියලා තීරණය කරන්නේ university එකෙන්. But you have a higher chance of getting a scholarship. A higher chance of getting a scholarship is not going to be 100% scholarship. No. Medicine වලට 100% scholarship, no chance. Something you need to pay. Understood? Right. So the CPU is accepted by the SLMC. Yes, the CPU is not a pre-medicine qualification only. The CPU or the Canadian University qualification is a Canadian A-level qualification. So Zahara, SLMC accepts other A-levels also. What is the other A-level? A London A-level. So the Canadian, up to my knowledge, 4 A-levels they accept. One is Sri Lankan A-level, one is England London A-level, which is Edexon, Pearson or Cambridge. 3 is Indian A-level. So you will ask me, sir, why are they accepting Indian qualifications? I don't understand. You know why? Our Sri Lankans working in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, other parts of Bahrain, Qatar, their kids are going to Indian schools doing Indian government's A-level. Indian government A-level is super strong, very, very good. Indian A-level, we accept it. 4th is the Canadian A-level. So the Canadian A-level is also accepted because it's an A-level ranged qualification, and the Canadian A-level is one of the strongest than the London A-level because Canadian A-level is coming from the Canadian government. Is Cambridge or Edexcel considered more than Sri Lanka AL when applying for a university? Is Cambridge or Edexcel considered more? Cambridge or Edexcel is accepted as same as Sri Lankan qualification from the university's point of view, but from the student's point of view, it's very easy when you are doing Cambridge or Edexcel, or even the CPU, which Zahara asked, the Canadian qualification is very easy. What happens in the Sri Lankan qualification is it's very hard. You need to study a lot. You don't have ASA2 divided. Like the Canadian qualification, you can finish in 10 months. London qualification, if you do the crash course, you can finish it in 1 year or 1 year and 2 months. Local A-level, you can never finish like so early. The local A-level, it actually takes time in that. Okay. So guys, we've just gone above our time, 1 hour. I really enjoyed this session. I hope you did it as well. Could you tell us about the pre-medical course, the duration for VSMU? The foundation course for VSMU is 10 months. It's a 10 months course and it costs 9,50,000. 9,50,000. By when should we apply for September intake? Now. Classes for September intake is going to start in 10 days. You need to apply now. Speak to your counselors and make sure you get all your documents, fee structures, agreements, everything connected and well documented so that we can immediately start. You will have to book me for another session, for a one-to-one personal session with your mom and dad and you. You can meet us in our Havelock Road office anytime. You can contact all the counselors who you have got the link through and get connected with them. Let's have another session in detail to see how this suits you. This session is to do some research for you. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned it. This is a very famous question. A lot of students get confused with, a lot of teachers get confused with, sir, I don't know what is MBBS. I don't know what is MD. I don't know how do you select it or shortlist it. I hope I have done justice in this 1 hour to actually clarify this. So guys, Take care. This video will be on tomorrow. God bless you. Keep in touch. I will post this on YouTube, and I hope you learned a lot. Okay. Have a nice day, guys. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, Zara.